By the way, politicians like Giorgia Meloni, some of what they're doing is a little performative because they haven't cracked down against mass immigration the same way, say, Hungary has or the United States. I make a prediction here. I bet you that within 2 weeks, you'll see the first Moroccan who stormed the beaches of Spain arrive in Canada, and I'll bet he'll get temporary, which means permanent, refugee status.
No, estaba mirando para allá y no te vi.
You know, Spain was invaded around the year 720. That's when it was conquered. The invasion started a little bit before that. That's almost exactly 1,400 years ago. Most of it was liberated in the 13th century, that is in the 1200s. But the last part of it was not liberated until 1492. I think that was Granada. So parts of Spain were under Muslim rule for more than 700 years. It's the same in much of the world. That's the same story. I mean, in Europe, you have the Siege of Vienna, where the Ottoman Turks were right at the gates of that city, and had they broken through, they would have taken all of Europe. That was in 1683, not that long ago. Syria, Egypt, Iraq, these were Christian countries conquered by Islam. There's just little vestiges of Christianity left. And the story I think about a lot, and the city I think about a lot, Constantinople, once the biggest, richest, most Christian city in the world, now gone forever and renamed Istanbul. It makes me think that even great cities like New York, what's to say they should last forever? Why should they last forever? Constantinople lasted for centuries. It's utterly gone. But I'm impressed by the Spanish. Imagine the effort to reconquer lands lost 4, 5, 6, 700 years before. You wouldn't even have any memory. You would just have some books. Of course, there wasn't even a lot of literacy back then. Imagine keeping a hope alive, keeping a tenacity and a sense of purpose and mission to endure centuries of occupation, to reconquer your country in the name of Christendom. That's incredible. In our place, in Canada, in the United States, in the modern world, is there anything we would remember from 700 years ago? Can we even remember things 70 years ago? Of course not. That would be the Second World War approximately. We've already forgotten the lessons of 9/11. Imagine holding on to something for 700 years. So that's Spain. But it's been wobbly recently. They have a communist leader, Sanchez, viciously anti-American, very corrupt. Even his wife is under investigation for corruption. There are credible allegations of Iranian influence. And obviously, as so many tyrants on the left, hugely anti-Israel and pro-Islamist, not just because it's their woke, Marxist, anti-colonial point of view, but it's also a distraction from the fact that they're committing so many economic and cultural crimes against their own country. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, here's Sanchez with Soros. That's Alex Soros, son of George Soros. Alex Soros collects left-wingers. It was crazy, a crazy idea to grant citizenship to 500,000 illegal migrants. This was an idea that Sanchez rolled out just a few months ago. He said there's so many illegals in Spain. Well, the way to make illegals disappear is to wave a wand and now suddenly call them legal. It's like the ultimate left-wing way to defeat crime. Simply say it's no longer a crime to steal or do many other things. So Spain said it would grant citizenship to 500,000 of these illegal migrants. Turns out more than double that showed up for the honors. As I said, Spain has become insanely anti-Israel, but being anti-Israel often doesn't remain contained to Israel. They've gone crazy anti-US as well. Spain is a member of NATO, and there are actually 2 US bases in Spain, But Spain would not even let the Americans use their own bases, not even, forget about attacking Iran, just refueling their jets. Spain told the United States they were not allowed to use their military bases that they pay for, that America pays for in Spain, for refueling their fighter jets.
First of all, as you know, we have denied the United States the use of the Rota and Moron bases for this illegal war. All flight plans that involved actions related to the operation in Iran were rejected, every single one of them, including those of refueling aircraft. It has not been easy, but I believe we have done so because this is allowed, among other things, by the bilateral agreement governing these bases, and because we are a sovereign country that does not wish to take part in illegal wars.
So that's Spain telling the story going back, 1,400 years. And then yesterday, an astonishing sight, almost like out of a Hollywood movie. And by Hollywood movie, I mean something like a zombie World War Z, where thousands and thousands of men, and I mean men, there were no old people, there were no babies or children, and I didn't see a single migrant woman. Thousands of them stormed into two Spanish exclaves. Exclave is a weird word. It's sort of the opposite of an enclave, isn't it? An enclave would be a little jut inside a country. An exclave is like a part of Spain that's just a little bit far away. Think of, for example, the Falkland Islands for the United Kingdom. It's very far away. Or think of Saint-Pierre and Miquelon for France. That's near Newfoundland, actually. There are two little exclaves, as they call them, that are Spanish territory, Spanish citizens. They're Spanish people, but they remain in Africa. They didn't leave Africa when Europeans were sort of kicked out. So one is called Ceuta, if I'm saying it right, Ceuta, and has about 80 or 90,000 people in it. So they're not massive, but they're significant. And so you can theoretically walk or drive right into them from Morocco. And yesterday, about 50 or 60,000 people did just that. The police didn't stop them. The military didn't stop them. Just again and again, and it didn't stop. And on the Moroccan side, trucks and buses shipping people to storm in. Here's a clip that's just astonishing. One woman standing there welcoming the men to come in by the tens of thousands. Other clips, just incredible. And it continued well into the night. Here's a clip of some of the men chanting, you guessed it, Allah Akbar. Take a listen.
Estaba mirando para allá y no te viste.
Well, like I say, this wasn't part of the Spanish mainland. They were sort of stuck in these little exclaves, which are really, I guess you could call them towns or small cities. So if 50 or 60,000 people storm into a city, what do you do? Like, where do you go? You can't start making a journey to Madrid or something, or get to the coast and go to England. You can't, because you're in this little exclave again. Well, maybe you start a riot. Maybe you start breaking into homes. Take a look at this video. Now, Ceuta, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is one of the exclaves. Another named Melilla, same exact thing happened there. Take a look. They just went in by the thousand, and they weren't stopped by the government. Here's a clip of one migrant saying, well, one of the reasons he wanted to go to Spain was to get away from all that nasty stuff involving a killing.
Ali, ¿por qué no te quedas en Marruecos? ¿Por qué decides venir a España?
Ya, yo vine a España porque quiero cambiar la vida, ¿sabes? Tengo problemas en Marruecos, no quiero volver a Marruecos.
¿Qué problemas? ¿Qué problemas tienes en Marruecos? ¿Qué te pasa?
Problemas que la gente con una colega que muerte, yo no puede sentar ahí porque hablar cosas no buenas para mí, ¿sabes? Puedes morir una persona y yo o la otra persona, ¿sabes? Por eso yo vine.
¿Tenías trabajo? ¿Te faltaba trabajo?
Ya, yo tengo trabajo bueno, yo trabajar a la playa, yo ayudar a la gente que no sabe nadar, muchas cosas ahí.
Ali, perdona, cuando hablas de problemas, ¿te refieres a problemas que tenías con la policía? ¿La policía te hizo algo allí?
Ya, con la gente, mucha gente a Marruecos, ¿sabes? peligroso, ¿sabes?
Es peligroso.
Ya, por eso yo salí.
¿Por qué peligroso? ¿Qué te ha pasado allí?
Hacer cosas buenas y también la gente no me gusta yo hacer una cosa, ¿sabes? También yo buscar el trabajo y no hay. Tengo back, yo hablo español y francés y al final no hay nada para mí, ¿sabes? Por eso yo vine para cambiar la vida, porque yo sentado ahí y no hay nada, ¿sabes?
Here's another guy stopping to talk to the cameras. He was pretty excited. He was ordered deported from Spain. But now he's back, and he's happy to tell you that.
Que estuve en Barcelona, que estuve en Cataluña, que estuve en Tarragona, que estuve en San Sebastián, que estuve en todos lados de España. Y aquí hemos llegado nadando. Ahora a las 5 de la mañana.
¿Y os han puesto pegas para entrar?
Sí, no he puesto una valla y no han pegado, ¿sabes? No, y ahora no hemos entrado. No ha pegado. Y además no nos dan de comer, no nos dan... Le dicen a la gente, no lo compras nada. Yo estaba aquí desde 12 años que estaba aquí en España. Y me han devuelto a Marruecos de 32 años y ahora me ha vuelto.
¿Has llegado hasta la frontera con Ceuta?
Me ha llegado andando.
¿Andando?
Sí.
¿Cuánto has tardado?
He tardado un día y medio.
¿Cómo te enteraste de que estaba pasando esto de que
He enterado por el Facebook que la puerta está abierta y no sé. Que tengo toda mi familia que está en España. Que sé, cada uno que está donde está. Que tengo mis hermanos, todos tienen nacional.
Y por la parte de Marruecos, en la policía, ¿allí os han puesto problemas para entrar?
Sí, no he puesto problemas, no pegan y nos hacen todas las cosas,
¿En
¿sabes?
Marruecos también o solo en España?
Los dos. Dice que si no vuelven, vamos a llegar otra vez.
Si os devuelven, vais a volver a cruzar, ¿no?
I wonder if it's any coincidence that thousands and thousands of actual criminals were released from prison in Morocco just this week, and many of them made their way to these exclaves. It reminds me of the Florida and Miami boat lift from Cuba. If you might recall, in the 70s, Castro made quite a move. He emptied his prisons of genuine criminals and emptied mental hospitals of genuine crazy people, and he sent them to America in, I think it was called the Mariel boat lift. And he said, oh, you Americans, you want us to allow people to leave freely here? Take our criminals and our insane asylums. And it looks like Morocco was following the same thing. Again, just getting rid of their criminals. I mean, sort of a smart move for Morocco, don't you think? Here's a stat. A quarter of Moroccans aged between 15 and 24 are not in school, not working, or training. And I'm reading to you a story from Reuters. And so there was so they're idle. They're looking for things to do. And apparently there was a Supreme Court ruling earlier in this month, July, that migrants intercepted at sea while trying to reach Ceuta or Melilla could not be immediately turned back. So Reuters is saying it was a combination of things: idle youth with nothing to do, no jobs, prisons being emptied, and rumors that if you stormed the beaches in these little exclaves, the Spanish Supreme Court itself wouldn't deport you, and their communist Islamist president wouldn't either. It reminds me of when I was in Marseille, France, and I encountered an Algerian who said, you know, France colonized Algeria for more than a century. I'm here to return the favor. Remember that?
Franchement, tout ce qui se passe ici, c'est par rapport à l'État. Tout ça, c'est la faute des policiers, c'est la faute de l'État. Parce qu'il y a ici en France, il y a trop de racisme. Le racisme, il est au premier degré ici en France. C'est tout ce que j'ai à dire. C'est tout.
Pourquoi millions de musulmans immigrés à France si France est raciste?
Eh ben, ils nous ont colonisé 132 ans. Et là, c'est notre tour de venir ici pour comment t'expliquer là, je n'ai pas trouvé les mots. Ils nous ont colonisé 132 ans et maintenant on va les coloniser à vie jusqu'à la mort, jusqu'à la fin des temps.
Here's another tweet. I mean, there's a lot of people saw this through the lens of a conquering army. I mean, makes sense. Spain has been conquered by Islam before. Are these exclaves truly Spanish? Well, of course they are, like the Falkland Islands, like Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. They are absolutely part of Spain, even though they look like they're far away. But remember, the story of Islam is the story of conquest. They are evangelical, but they use the sword more than anything. That's the story of the spread of Islam to the gates of Vienna, throughout Egypt, etc. The irony is that Spain properly asserts its control over these exclaves, but that's very different from what they criticize Israel for saying and doing. I just mentioned that the Spanish government is incredibly anti-Israel, but their own logic about Israel decolonizing the West Bank could be used in this case. I'm on the Spanish side, by the way, of the Spanish people, not the Spanish government, to say that these are Spanish territories. But that's not the argument that Spain itself has bought into. The media has generally ignored this story, which is quite astonishing to me. But if you're in one of these exclaves, it's tough to ignore it. Suddenly, your entire population has changed. Suddenly, women are a small minority, and it's 2/3 men. Suddenly, Islam is the largest religion there. Here's a young woman saying she's scared, and it's a catastrophe. Take a look.
Estamos, como vecina de Ceuta, ya podéis ver que la seguridad brilla por su ausencia, nos sentimos desamparados, nos sentimos totalmente abandonados, estamos paralizados, esto ha paralizado a una ciudad completamente entera, están todos los comercios locales cerrados, no podemos ir a comprar porque los supermercados están cerrados, porque ellos entran a robar, estamos totalmente desolados, el panorama es catastrófico. Yo personalmente trabajo en una finca de eventos que esta noche han entrado a robar 200 personas. No podemos contar con la Policía Nacional ni la Guardia Civil porque el señor Fernando Grande Marlaska no ha declarado que hay una emergencia nacional. Si no está la emergencia nacional ahora, ¿cuándo va a estar? Esto es una emergencia nacional de manual, de libro. Nos están invadiendo. Han empezado por Ceuta. Miradme a mi alrededor. Es que es alucinante. Es que poneros en nuestro lugar. ¿Vosotros si estuvierais aquí dejaríais salir a la calle a vuestros hijos y a vuestras hijas? No. Es inseguro, o sea, no sabemos quién han entrado, sabemos que se cuentan ya más de 70.000 personas, es que están llegando a la cifra de los ciudadanos ceutíes, somos casi 80.000 ceutíes los que vivimos aquí, tenemos miedo, es que no lo podemos consentir. ¿Dónde están nuestros derechos como españoles? ¿Dónde están nuestros principios como españoles? ¿Por qué no se ha acatado la Ley de la Seguridad Nacional 23? Para eso está, que blinden la ciudad, necesitamos la policía en la calle, la Guardia Civil en la calle, necesitamos los militares en la calle. No están, estamos solos, no podemos llamar a la policía ni a la Guardia Civil porque no dan abasto, necesitamos ayuda urgente. De verdad, esto es indignante. Yo estoy rodeada, tengo miedo. ¿Cómo no voy a tener miedo? Si tengo ganas hasta de llorar. No se puede, esto no se puede de verdad. No se puede, necesitamos ayuda.
Rocío.
Callaros. Es que estoy temblando, es que de verdad esto es para vivirlo. Esto es para vivirlo como mujer, esto es para vivirlo. Esto es una invasión, han empezado por Ceuta, pero esto es la frontera a España, la frontera a Europa. Hoy ha sido Melilla, mañana será Canarias, pasado será Tarifa. De verdad, es que no hay derecho.
Lorena, la verdad que ahora estamos en un momento muy complicado.
Well, other countries in Europe are paying attention for a number of reasons. One is, as you probably know, Europe has something called a Schengen zone. That's a funny German word. And it's the name of a treaty that allows mobility throughout Europe. That is, if you can find your way into Italy or into Germany, you have the right to travel from country to country at liberty. There's really no border crossings within the Schengen zone of Europe anymore, which makes it very convenient for workers or tourists, which is why it was conceived years ago. I mean, imagine if you had to stop and show a passport and get a visa every time you went country to country. I mean, there's so many little countries in Europe, it would drive you mad. The Schengen zone was wonderful, but I don't think they contemplated 20 or 30 million migrants using the Schengen zone. And so suddenly, for example, Giorgia Meloni, the leader of Italy panicked and said, well, we've got to shut down, we've got to withdraw from the Schengen Zone Treaty because we don't want these people simply to walk right into Italy. It was insane that Spain didn't stop them getting into Spanish territory, but that's what happened. So now, legally, under the treaty, you bet they can go to Italy, to France, to Germany. And of course, Nigel Farage in the United Kingdom knows what's going to happen. Many of these Moroccans will likely make their way to France and then get into a dinghy and make their way to the UK. Why would they do that? Very generous benefits. I mean, people come to the United Kingdom because they get free stuff. It's been a very interesting couple days to take a look at it. And there's great comparisons made with other border crossings. The visuals of it was so astonishing, but we've seen those visuals before. This was about 50,000 or more people, but that's sort of what it was like in the Biden administration in any given month, maybe any given week. They say that 13 million illegal migrants just walked across the border under Biden's watch, changing not just the demographics, but the voter demographics, the crime demographics, the job demographics. Donald Trump made that his #1 policy objective. I fear that if Trump loses in the midterms, his approach to deportations will be watered down. And God forbid, if the Democrats win the general election in 2028, you will see this kind of mass immigration coming to America. And by the way, I think we already have it in Canada. The difference is we just let them in legally. I think what we do in Canada is worse than either place. At least Spain and America pretend that what's going on there is illegal. In Canada, it's official policy. By the way, politicians like Giorgia Meloni, some of what they're doing is a little performative because they haven't cracked down against mass immigration the same way, say, Hungary has or the United States. I make a prediction here. I bet you that within 2 weeks, you'll see the first Moroccan who stormed the beaches of Spain arrive in Canada, and I'll bet he'll get temporary, which means permanent, refugee status. By the way, we're about to put on a plane 2 of our talent, Efrain Monsanto and Alexa Lavoie, to send them to these exclaves. It's such a difficult journey. We have to fly them to Madrid, and then they take a train, and then they take a ferry. It's actually almost 2 full days to get to Ceuta, and they're going to be there for about 2.5 days on the ground, talking to ordinary Spanish people, talking to the migrants if we can. I think this is an incredible story and a shocking one, and I think the Rebel News approach is very necessary as opposed to the CBC approach, don't you think? So starting tonight, Alexa Lavoie and Efrain will be hopping on planes. You can follow their journey at one of our important websites called migrantreports.com. Stay with me, more ahead.